Oh, Smithy, we've promised many times, mate, and delivered not many, but here we are. First time on YouTube, trade deadline. It was meant to be.
Yeah, we've promised this a few times to our loyal listeners, and technical difficulties is a running theme here at TDs and Threes, but we've managed to find a way, and this will be up on YouTube. First episode, what a beauty.
Absolutely. So if you enjoy the content, please subscribe. Comment below where you think we got it right, where we think we got it wrong, mate. We're all here for the discussion and building that NBA community that exists all over the world, mate. And we're not against having non-Australian tiers. You can probably tell probably more by Smithy's voice than I that we're here down under, but we love our basketball, mate, and we're happy to be here.
Yeah, absolutely. Massive fans of the hoops, and we've already grown quite a nice little community there with TDs and Threes podcasts. So to get it going on the YouTube platform and a bit more interaction with comments and stuff like that, it's going to be really cool to see.
Absolutely. They'll be able to see Daz's stuff up live visually, which is going to be extraordinary. And we've got some clips that we might drop sort of at an end of year special, mate, that is going to set the YouTube scene on fire. But the trade deadline, mate, we know it's more rumors than deals, but plenty got done and plenty to talk about. I'm looking forward to getting through it.
Yeah, and our two teams are actually quite active, which is shocked us both, to be honest.
Something we weren't expecting coming in. We were happy for sort of 3 weeks in a row to go. We're looking forward to talking about every franchise but ours, but for different reasons. Yours going not so well and mine going quite well in the last couple of weeks that we became big movers. So let's get into it, I reckon.
Yeah, let's start.
All right. So as you can see on the screen, Portland have picked up Josh Hart, Tomas Satoransky, Nikhil Alexander-Walker, Didi Luzada, a 2022 first and 2 second-round picks. Jeez, isn't that a mouthful? And the Pelicans have picked up CJ McCollum, a man very close to Smithy's heart, Larry Nance, and Tony Snell. Now, you are the Blazers fan, as people can see by the top, mate. You're representing. How did you feel about this one? Because you were happy to see CJ depart, but was this for what you wanted back?
Yeah, as you said, I've been calling for the franchise to move on from CJ McCollum for quite a few years now, and it did finally happen. Was I happy with the deal? Before we traded Nikhil Alexander-Walker, I thought it was a pass. Now that we've moved him on as well, which we'll get to, the cap dump's great, but at the end of the day, if you're a small market team, there's two ways to build championship rosters. Through the draft, you have to draft the superstar and hope they stay at the franchise, or two, to trade for pieces. It's rare that a small market team builds up a massive cash war chest, which Portland have done, gone into free agency, picked up the best talent, and gone on to win a championship. It just doesn't happen. You look at small markets like the Bucks. They drafted Giannis, and they got Chris Middleton from the G League. And then they gave up lots to get Drew Holiday. And that was the core for their small market championship. Portland have gone the third of two possible ways, in my opinion. So I think it was an interesting deadline. I do like Josh Hart. I think he's a really good player. The first is great, but it's heavily protected. So unless it falls between 5 and 14, we don't get the first round pick this year. So a little bit confusing. Larry Nance is going in for season-ending surgery, so losing him wasn't that big of a deal. And Tony Snell was just steak knives. So look, overall, it wasn't the worst trade we made at the deadline. But, I think we could have got a lot more value for CJ McCollum at the end of the day.
Well, we're going to find out about your other trades really, really quickly, mate. The second one here, Nikhil Alexander-Walker and Juancho Hernan-Gomez, who was formerly of the Boston Celtics. They've gone to the Jazz. You've picked up Joe Ingles, who, our man, the Aussie man, did his ACL, so we're not going to see him in a Blazers jersey this year. Elijah Hughes and a 2027 second, and Tomas Satoransky and a 2022 second rounder has gone to the Spurs. And for anyone watching, figuring out what I'm going to get a name wrong, it's not this time, but look forward to that and stick around because that's going to be genuinely extraordinary. My blooper reel is already towards the legendary, so good luck to you. But how did you feel about this one, mate?
This was purely to create more salary cap room.
Yeah.
Joe Ingles won't play a minute for the Portland Trailblazers. He's a free agent coming up. I expect him to sign with the Jazz on a minimum contract to go back to Utah. And Elijah Hughes is on a rookie deal, I'm pretty sure. So just another one to gain cap room. I like it for the Jazz. I
Hmm.
like Nickeil Alexander-Walker coming off the bench. I was actually excited to see him play for Portland, but never got the chance to put on the jersey. I think he could be a really good piece depending on his shooting going down the stretch. And Tomas Satoransky, he's a solid player. He'll sit behind DeJounte Murray this year and play some valuable bench minutes. So overall, for what the three teams wanted, I think it's a win all around.
Yeah, I like it. I think the Jazz, who, I think they're stuck in this good but not good enough sort of stage. So picking up pieces when they can only be a good thing. Let's go to the third Blazers move, mate. And that was Justice Winslow, Keon Johnson, and a 2025 second for Norman Powell and Robert Covington. And oh boy, there are a few names on that list that have given you some pain this season. So go for it, mate. How did you feel about this one?
We also got Eric Bledsoe, but it's expected that he's going to be waived straight away and going into the buyout market. So he's pretty much irrelevant, in this deal. This was the start of the end for the Blazers this year. It set the Twitter world on fire. Surely we could have got more value for Norman Powell and Robert Covington, man. We traded 2 first-round picks to get Robert Covington at the start of last year. We traded Gary Trent, who is averaging 30 points per game in his last 5 games, for Norman Powell. And all we get is Justice Winslow and Keon Johnson and a second-round pick.
Yeah, that's just gross.
It's just not enough. Norman Powell is a very valuable player in this league. He's a good scorer. He plays good defense, and he's on a fairly decent contract considering what he can do. And Robert Covington is just your typical 3-and-D player. He didn't do what he was hyped to do in Portland. He wasn't very good defensively, and he shot a poor percentage from behind the 3-point line. So I wasn't sad to see him go, but I still think surely we could have got more. The positive for us is Justice Winslow's looked really good in his 2 games for Portland. He looks really good. And he went through some stages with Miami where he looked like he was going to break out and become a really solid player. Hopefully, we keep him around and he can realize his potential.
Yeah, fingers crossed. And let's get to the next one, mate. No emotional investment in the next few. This is between the Wizards and the Mavs. So the Wizards pick up Kristaps Porzingis and a future second for Spencer Dinwiddie and Davis Bertans, who last year during the playoffs was just shooting terribly. So this is kind of a trade for mine. My initial instincts just go, did anyone win from this? Let's be honest. It was not that it's nothing, but I don't see how either franchise are really revolutionized by this trade, but those kind of things happen.
It's a massive head scratcher for me. I just don't understand where the Mavericks are coming at from this point. Obviously, Kristaps didn't quite work out in Dallas the way we thought he might have next to Luka Doncic, but Spencer Dinwiddie hasn't been good this year, and they've already got Luka, who essentially plays point guard and has the ball in his hands the whole time. I don't think Spencer Dinwiddie is made to sit in the corner and shoot corner threes as a shooting guard. So don't love the fit there. Davis Bertans has not shot the ball well at all this year. Kristaps Porzingis on the Wizards. I mean, yeah, it's cool. He'll probably play power forward next to Thomas Bryant, Kyle Kuzma at small forward. So they've got a nice little front court there, but he hasn't been great lately. I think the Wizards win this one, but yeah, it's a real head scratcher for me.
Yeah, and he's a 7-foot beanpole, Kristaps. He's a weird player to watch. He'd probably, if we famously, mate, had a what the fuck podium for teams in the NFL last year. If we had one for NBA players, you'd have to be a brave man to take the gold off Kristaps there. But new franchise, mate, we might bring the best out of him. Who knows? Let's move on to the trade that's probably brought us the most revolutionary in the NBA so far, and that is the trade exception and the cash that the Wizards get. And Aaron Holiday goes to the Suns. And my goodness me, this is what Twitter meltdowns were made for.
Yeah, pretty sure this had about 3,000 likes because who really cares? Nah, Aaron Holiday, he's all right.
Good piece for the Suns. They're a contending team. So.
Yeah, he might play a few bench minutes for the Suns. If Chris Paul gets injured, could play a big part in their championship run. So that's fine. The Wizards get some cash and a trade exception. So, whatever.
What a world do we live in a sport where you can just trade cash. We go, fuck, it's not that really important. It's extraordinary. But good luck to Aaron Holiday. He's probably going to give us all the middle finger and play really well. So the Wizards again feature here, mate, with Ish Smith and Vernon Carey Jr. going to the Wizards. And the Hornets get Montrez, the big Harold, who I think this one's going under the radar. They need some grunt around them, Charlotte. This whole pretty boy basketball ain't working for me. So I actually give it a tick.
Yeah, love this move for the Hornets. Really do. People have been crying out all year for the Hornets to go get a center who isn't scared to rebound the ball, can get you some second chance points. And as you said, provides a bit of grunt, and Montrez does all of those things. I expect it to be very similar to when he was on the Clippers. I think Mason Plumlee will probably still start for the Hornets, but play, 18 to 20 minutes a night. And Montrez will play your 36 minutes a night, where he's coming off the bench, giving you those impact minutes and playing down the stretch. He's going to be a good lob threat on the pick and roll with LaMelo. He's going to do all the dirty things for the Hornets. So I think this is a massive tick for them.
And if anyone wants to try, roughen up these youngsters, as they say, especially Melo, who's not the pretty boy in the sense of what I said before, but considering Melo's the new, hot young thing in town, and if teams think that they can get inside his head, imagine trying to rough him up a little, even if it is psychologically, and you've got Montrez coming at you. Goodness gracious me, you'd have to be a brave man to get in his way, mate.
Yeah, absolutely. And he is going to protect the younger players. So massive ticks for Charlotte for me.
Absolutely. So let's move on to the next one. This is the Raptors and the Spurs. So Thaddeus Young, Drew Eubanks, and a 2022 second-round pick linked to Denver have gone to the Raptors. The Spurs pick up Goran Dragic after being Dragic. Sorry, there's the one. There's always the one. And a 2022 first after Goran was it bought out by the Heat, or he ended up being bought out by the Raptors? I think that's the way it goes. I've probably got that wrong, but anyway, Dragic is now on the Spurs, and that's what matters. Don't mind this from either way, mate, but the Spurs are going to be hoping that the big GD gets back to his bubble form.
Yeah, well, he was traded from Miami to the Raptors and getting Kyle Lowry, and he never really bought into the Raptors, I don't think, Goran Dragic. So it was pretty much a given that he was going to be on the move. He should fit nicely. The Spurs have a lot of guards now, though. DeJounte Murray, Tomas Satoransky, Goran Dragic, they're all point guards. So it's going to be unusual to see that. Maybe Satoransky gets bought out. Maybe Dragic gets bought out. Who knows? But the first round pick is the big one in here. The Raptors are in the playoffs at the moment, but a few teams in the East got a bit better. If they, are around that play-in and don't quite make it, this could be a pretty good first-round pick for the Spurs. So I think that's the main part in this deal.
Yeah, they're definitely looking at maybe a top 16, the front half of that first round, which would be extraordinary. I knew the buyout was in there somewhere. I think I've butchered that whole situation, but we'll get better with the next one, mate. That involves the Pacers and the Suns. Jalen Smith and a future second end up in Indiana, and Torrey Craig back to the Suns, the only Suns player last year who won a ring. So there's a little bit of NBA trivia for you, but he's back in Phoenix, and this probably doesn't move the paper too much, but both teams get what they want out of it, and at the end of the day, that's a win.
Now, the Suns like Torrey Craig, they brought him back. The Pacers are going into a bit of a retool / rebuild mode. Jalen Smith, he's good. He's a promising young player. So they've done that well there. They've also got a future second. The Pacers had no reason to keep Torrey Craig. So I think it's a bit of a win-win for both sides.
And considering we know they want to rebuild, mate, he's a young player, so a good place to start there. So tick for both. Now let's move on to the head scratcher. This is just genuinely... speaking of what the fuck podium, goodness me, the Pacers get Tyrese Halliburton, Buddy Hield and Tristan Thompson for Domantas Sabonis, Justin Holiday, Jeremy Lamb, and a future second. The big thing that I kind of want to scream, which I won't for two reasons. One, no one wants to hear that, especially got headphones in, especially like Smithy does at the moment. Why? That's the word. Why did they get rid of Tyrese Halliburton, mate, who was the only Kings player in the last decade that looked like he actually wanted to be there long term?
Yeah. It was a big head scratcher. Let me make this clear. The Kings getting Domantas Sabonis is not a bad thing.
No, it's a good thing.
It's a great thing.
Yeah,
and they proved it the first game Sabonis played for the Kings, he had 22 points, 14 rebounds or something like that, and they won. So he's going to have a positive impact. But what's their ceiling for this year? A play-in spot.
Yeah.
If you're aiming to get into the play-in, what is your franchise doing? Tyrese Halliburton was the cornerstone, the building block for their future. He was bought into the Kings, and he came out in his introductory interview to the Indiana Pacers and said, I put all of my trust into the Sacramento Kings franchise.
That's your mistake.
And they traded me.
Yep.
And, he's a young kid. It was so great that he did that, but it just shows how brutal the NBA is. I still don't quite understand why the Kings did it. I know they had to pick out of Fox and Halliburton at some stage. I would have waited until the offseason to do it, personally. Halliburton was averaging 17 points and 9 assists over the season, and they traded him. So I don't quite understand it. The Pacers also got Buddy Hield. I think
underrated piece in this trade, I reckon.
Yeah, I think they were looking to flip him again at the deadline, but if he comes out and plays well in Indiana, could be a trade target or trade piece over the summer. I think the Pacers win this long term. The Kings will be better for the rest of the year, but what is their ceiling?
Yeah. And if you're struggling like the Kings are, and you've got to make a decision between two players, I know there are going to be exceptions here. Like, I'm going to say this, and if people take it out of context, they'd say, like, you're picking between, like, Jalen Suggs and LeBron or something stupid like fans can get sometimes. But when you're picking between two guys in your franchise and you're already not a contending team, why wouldn't you go with the younger guy, especially if the production is similar? Then you can rebound with other pieces and get back up quicker is what it seems like. So, mate, the definition of a head scratcher. Ready to move on. The Thunder and the Heat. Again, this one isn't revolutionizing the NBA, but every trade deserves a fair go. KZ, Okpala, and a future first for a least 2026 second rounder. So whichever one comes later will go to the Heat, and an adjusted future first round pick, which is something that I'm still trying to wrap my head around how that works. But a future first is always handy, mate. Again, doesn't revolutionize the league. Both teams sort of get what they want. So win-win.
I just can't believe the Thunder traded a pick for a player. Usually it's the other way around. So it's bizarre. I think the Thunder general manager might have got confused, thought they were getting a pick instead of getting a player. But yeah, just a little trade deadline move. Both teams are happy. So good.
I think the only way the Thunder are going to win a chip in the next 2 years is if everyone in the NBA right now can't play anymore. It's just all allowed. And so you have to start every franchise again because they've got that much draft capital. It's unbelievable. Let's get to my mob, the Celtics. We picked up a future second, and the Magic get a Bol and PJ Dozier, both who aren't going to be featuring this year. But the Celtics, with their moves, get under the luxury tax, which is good for the Celtics. So I've got nothing wrong with this. And a future second round picks are usually a coin flip. So no complaints here, mate.
Yeah, just opening up some roster spots for the buyout market, I think. So if the Celtics can turn these two roster spots into, an Eric Gordon and, someone else of value in the buyout market, then it's a massive tick.
Yep, absolutely. The second move that the Celtics have made here, if I can bring it up, is bringing back Daniel Tice, which I wasn't a fan of them getting rid of him. He did frustrate me at times because a bloke that big and that imposing in the paint as he can be, taking 3-pointers is just really irritates me. And the problem, and I've said it, he's very similar to Marcus Smart if he can get a 3-pointer going, he'll keep doing it. So if the first one goes in, he'll shoot 8 of them. If he doesn't get the first one in, he won't do it again. So you almost cross your fingers that he misses it from a Celtics point of view. The Rockets pick up Dennis Schroeder, Bruno Fernando, and Enes Freedom. Bruno wasn't getting that much time. Freedom hadn't done a lot for us this year. He'd done more in the social justice movement than he had for the Celtics, which good on him. Got nothing against that. Dennis, my man, has left us, mate, which is not great, but we did end up having to make some moves, and Tice coming in, I think, lessens the pain. So I'm not as upset as I think most Celtics people are. I know Dennis was good for us this year, but I think he'll be good for the Rockets, good mentor. He's a good guard, and the Celtics get some more size, which they definitely need.
Yeah, well, Freedom has already been waived by the Rockets, so he'll enter the buyout market.
Probably getting back for a 5th time or however many times we've had him.
He'll probably come to Portland.
Yeah, it'll be one of our franchises.
Yeah. But yeah, as you said, Bruno wasn't getting much run with the Celtics. They've got in a guy in Daniel Tice that they like, they know, and they think he can help. So Yeah, and Dennis Schroeder was always going to get traded. He had to get under the luxury tax, and that's what they've done. So, yeah, good job by the Celtics.
Yeah, absolutely. And I feel bad for you, mate, because I actually skipped the trade in the run sheet here, but I'll go back to it. We ended up picking up Derek White for Josh Richardson, Romeo Langford, and a 2022 first. And normally, when you've got a bit of a head scratching phase of a trade, it's normally a player that you end up taking. But I wonder why we gave up the two players there. Jay Rich has been good for us, but I know we needed defense as well, and Derek White brings that. I don't mind getting rid of Langford. He'd had his, time in the Celtics. It didn't look like it was working roster-wise. The first round pick, especially this year, surprises me. There's a bit of an all-in about this. We've talked about it with the LA Rams in the NFL. We're not that good yet, but there's a little bit of all-in at this stage, which does concern me. But for a franchise which I've hung shit on the fact that we don't make moves, we've made them and I've got to accept them, and I'm more than happy to have Derek White. So as much as I'm a little bit skeptical about the first round pick, I'd much rather have a player ready to win now than the pick, and who knows, the pick might not be a great one. What do you think?
Yeah, well, Derek White and Marcus Smart backcourt
Oof.
is a very good defensive backcourt. Really, really good. Losing the first round pick was what got me a little bit. I initially saw the Celtics are trading Derek White for Josh Richardson, and I thought, oh my God, W by the Celtics.
Yeah.
That is huge. And then it came out that they were giving up the first round pick and Romeo Langford. And I thought, do you want to give up that much for Derek White? I don't know. Look, if he comes out and him and Marcus Smart are clamping up and their defensive rating shoots up with Derek White in the lineup, then it's a tick. I'm not that big of a fan of giving up the first round pick, but I guess you can't hold on to all your first round picks every single year like the Celtics have traditionally done. So if they think they can compete, go for it.
Yeah, that's it. And since the 28th of December, the Celtics have got the best defensive rating already. So adding Derek White into that, I think, can only be a good thing. Let's get to the 4-team trade, mate. And just for the fans out there, just if you can appreciate the work that the graphics department, aka Dazzling, has put in here. Goodness gracious me. The Bucks end up getting Serge Ibaka, a bit of cash, and 2 second-round picks. The Pistons get Marvin Bagley. The Clippers get Semi Ojeleye and Rodney Hood. And the Kings end up with Dante DiVincenzo, Josh Jackson, and Trey Lyles. And Smithy, are we in the almost impossible situation of every team in a 4-team trade having at least a tick here, regardless if it's a big tick or just a tick in general?
Clippers stand out as the loser in this trade for me. I've never been a big Semi Ojeleye fan.
No, as a Celtics fan, I can say neither will we.
And Rodney Hood hasn't been the same since he tore his Achilles. So I don't think the Clippers get much value out of this. The other 3 teams, massive. Yeah. The Bucks needed size. They've got an experienced center who's a really good shot blocker, can rebound the ball, and is just a good team person. So for the Bucks to get Serge Ibaka, it's a massive tick, especially if Brook Lopez cannot come back this year. The Pistons are taking a chance on Marvin Bagley, which I think is fantastic for them. They're a young team. They're in a position where they can take a risk on someone like Marvin Bagley. And if it doesn't pan out, let him go into free agency.
Yep.
Big tick for the Pistons. The Kings, I like Dante DiVincenzo as a player. He just didn't quite fit in at Milwaukee this year for whatever reason that is. He gets his chance. There's no Tyrese Haliburton left in Sacramento, so he could slide right into the shooting guard position, and they can see what he's got. Trey Lyles and Josh Jackson, just good role players, good team people. So 3 out of the 4 teams in this trade, I give big ticks to.
I feel like we're not going to find out how good the Clippers is until we find out their roster maybe for next year with Kawhi and Paul George. I think if we can figure out what they do from there, that trade might come back. But I like it for all 4. But the big one, mate, the best till last, as they say, the one that has set Twitter into meltdown, the one that got us onto here as quickly as possible. But James Harden is finally a Sixer, and poor Paul Millsap here has been forgotten. He's also gone to the Sixers as well. No one's talking about you, Paul, but we will. So if you want to give us just a little bit of a shout out or something, mate, but we're sending you lots of love here. And the Nets pick up Ben Simmons, Seth Curry, Andre Drummond, and 2 first-round picks. And Smithy, before I get your opinion, I'm going to put this out there. I fucking love this trade for both teams. Finally, the Ben Simmons saga is over, which is 20% of the love straight off the bat. The Sixers, they get Harden. They wanted him. Daryl Morey wanted him. Big tick there. What Millsap can provide off the bench, we'll find out as he plays. And then the Nets, Ben Simmons and Kevin Durant is just frightening as a combination. Seth Curry has shot really well this year. Andre Drummond, backup center, which is going to be absolutely fine. We've seen him in Philly backing up Joel Embiid. The fact that he's one of the best rebounders in the league. Still, although you get him outside the paint, either side of the court, and he's not providing too much, Andre. But you love the guys for what they can do, not for what they can't do, mate. And the Nets get 2 first-round picks, not trading them away like they did for the Celtics players back in the day, but I'll still remember that forever. So get Nick to Brooklyn. But both teams, mate, fantastic. I love everything about it. Do you share my level of equal love here?
Yeah, it's a win-win.
The
Sixers get way better for this year. The Nets get better for the future. And I think even the Nets this year, I think it's just a great trade all around.
Yeah.
Finally, the Ben Simmons stuff is over. He is going to go on their next road trip, and it looks like he'll start playing. So finally, we get to see Ben Simmons back on the court. Mm-hmm. Andre Drummond will start for Brooklyn, I believe. Mm-hmm. They're pretty weak at the center position.
Oh, yeah.
They've been starting Blake. They've been starting Blake Griffin at center.
Oh boy.
And the numbers that Andre Drummond has been putting up off the bench in Philadelphia are wild.
Yeah,
they are so good, the numbers he's putting up off the bench. So all he's going to have to come in and do is rebound the ball and play defense. He can do both of those. Seth Curry is exactly what the Nets need. They needed a bit more perimeter shooting on the wing. He'll do that. The James Harden, Joel Embiid pick and roll is going to be a thing of beauty. This is the best 1-2 combination in the league now. And I think the 76ers automatically go into favorites for the East, in my opinion. Imagine if we get a Philadelphia versus Brooklyn East
finals. Yes, I was going to bring that up.
Holy moly. That would be absolutely huge. But I saw Stephen A. Smith come out and say this is Daryl Morey's worst day of his career by getting James Harden. And I think that is just a ridiculous statement, to be honest.
He's gone past Skip Bayless for mine. I know Skip's ridiculous, but he's self-aware. I think big SAS is starting to lose the self-awareness. Come on, Stephen.
That's just crazy. Like, they gave up Ben Simmons. He was never going to play another game for Philadelphia. So, you know what? Who cares? You lost Seth Curry, but you've got good wings already in Tyrese Maxey, Matisse Thybulle, Furkan Korkmaz. They're all handy players. You lose Andre Drummond, but really, Brooklyn valued him way more than Philadelphia. So, bang. You lose 2 first-round picks, but if James Harden re-signs, you are going to be good for the next 3 or 4 years. Those first-round picks don't really matter.
Jack, yeah.
So, I don't know how people are coming out and saying that Brooklyn fleeced Philadelphia, Brooklyn won this trade by a mile, all this stuff. It just doesn't make sense. Even if James Harden was going to sign in Philadelphia at the end of the year, there's no guarantee of that happening. So why not secure him now, trade for him, show him that Philly's the place he wants to be, and then give him the contract? 100%. I think it's just a win all around. People should stop complaining and just rejoice that we've seen arguably the biggest trade deadline trade that we'll ever see.
Yeah, and the ESPN 30 for 30 writes itself. Eastern Conference Finals, Game 6 in Philly. And Big Ben pulls the shot up over Embiid. How good would that be? Those two one-on-one game-winning shot goes in. Brooklyn go through. Man, I'm getting goosebumps thinking about it. This is going to be simply extraordinary. That's why we saved the best to last, mate. I'll tell you what, not many better debuts than that, I don't think, mate. You've represented Portland, the trade deadline. Geez, it's been fun. I do like the fact that we get to sleep through it here, wake up, and then instantly react as we've done here. So we get away with it a bit in Australia, and I've genuinely loved it, mate. For anyone out there that's watched all the way through in one sitting, appreciate it. If you've come back to it after a while, that's absolutely fine. If you could click that subscribe button, that would be awesome. We do weekly NBA updates. That'll come to you Thursday morning, Australia time, where we go over everything from game of the week, hero of the week, our MVP, running leaderboard, which is just a 3-way jam at the top, which is just extraordinary. So stick around for that. Comment below. Let us know what you think of your favorite trade, whether you won it or you lost it. If you're a team like the Lakers, mate, who didn't get involved, did you enjoy that or not? All those good things. And let's start building the YouTube community, since we're doing it already in the podcasting community. It's been fantastic, mate.
Yeah, it's been great fun. Stoked to finally be on YouTube. As Daz said, get in the comments. Tell us who you barrack for, what you think of your team's trades. If your team didn't make a trade, are you happy? Let us know what your favorite deal was. Just get in the comments. Let's start building a community, as Daz said. We're so glad to finally be on YouTube. Can't wait to bring more content to you guys. But until then, stay safe, everyone.